Uh-oh. Okay, we're live now. Hang on, let me just mute it on the other end. Give me a second. Oh, we've already got a thumbs down. Isn't that lovely?
Hey, first alarmist.
It's not going live on the other end. Oh, yeah, hang on. There we go. We're live. Okay. All right. I didn't mean to go a couple of minutes early. Tim Wilms, I know you're still live on your show, but he was chomping at the bit, so yeah. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to my regular Wednesday night live stream. Today I have Stephen Wells. Stephen Wells is the author of the book Confessions of a Climate Change Denier. You're gonna have to mute it on your side. I can hear myself. You're in another window. So the other window, just mute it.
Oh dear, I'm gonna have to call the wife in again. This is why we start early.
Well, hey, this is not my fault. Go to
so
sorry everyone. Go to the top. There's tabs. There should be tabs, and on one of those tabs it will say YouTube, and we're probably on one of those, and you just mute it, or you get rid of it, or you can get your wife.
Could get my wife, Sophia.
Sorry guys,
I'm opening all kinds of windows here.
Very professional.
We're screwing up.
What did you do?
What did I do?
I'm echoing. I can hear myself echoing.
We've got two windows open. So which window am I opening?
I have all of my windows open, but I've just muted it on the. What'd you do? Hang on a second, guys. Sorry.
There we go.
Am I still echoing?
I don't know. I was echoing. I'm not now.
You're not now. All good?
Wait. Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. No, I didn't hear any echoing. It's all good.
All good? All right. We're ready to go.
What did she do? Yeah, okay. We're ready to go. Okay.
She did some man stuff.
Some man stuff, yeah. See,
man stuff that I'm not manly enough to do myself.
They have a very great marriage. She does all the male things, like get rid of the spiders and all the techie things, and he cooks dinner while she comes home.
I'm barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen.
Apparently, you were on Wilm's Front a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I had. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Show. Yeah. It was a good laugh.
He's my friend.
Yeah, is he? Everyone's your friend.
I'm just a lovable gal.
You know, I said, whether you like it or not, I'm going to be your friend at the end of this. It's like I'm your friend now.
That's hilarious. No, I honestly had no idea you were on his show. I don't keep track of all the people who he interviews, but sometimes our guests do cross-pollinate. I had a man. My very first interview of the year was a fireman. He was a Queensland politician, as well as a what was the other word? He's a rural bush. He knows bushfires as well. And he, like you, has come to the conclusion that climate change is a myth, and that the alarmists, that there's probably agenda behind it. I'm not sure what the agenda is. Probably just to alarm people and convince people to stop having babies. I'm not really sure. But how did you come to this conclusion? Because you are not technically, I know you're self-educated. I am too on basically everything I've ever taught myself regarding the political world, but you're not like a scientist or anything like that. So why should people believe you?
Well, they shouldn't. I mean, nobody should believe anything they're told anymore. Everybody should be, you should treat every single person you meet that has anything to say as like a used car salesman. And you should treat everyone as a con man until proven otherwise, is my philosophy going forward these days. I came about the sort of revelation in 2013 during the election of Tony Abbott, where I was against Tony Abbott. I was a bit of still sort of a lefty supporter, and I went on Facebook.
Idiot. Idiot.
I know. This is why we have Christianity. I mean, this is why I really need to be converted and saved.
Because none of us are idiots.
I need to be
Not a
forgiven.
single Christian is an idiot.
I need to be forgiven for my sins for wanting was it Julia Gillard or Kevin Rudd? It was one of the two. It was not Tony Abbott anyway, and I was being on this Facebook room for some reason, and there was a guy who was just defending against all comers about the point of climate change, and he was kicking ass, and I went in there and tried to put my 2 cents worth, and he kicked my ass as well, and I didn't like it, and so I thought, right, all I've really seen is Al Gore's movie. I'm going to go away, and I'm going to if I see this guy again I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to take him down. And so I went and got every physics book out of the library. I went online, and for like 4 months, I just went into it nonstop. And the more I went into it, and the more I went to ask questions of scientists who were supporting it, just the harder it became to defend it, until eventually I just had to say, look, the whole thing is crap. It's not just the global warming is crap. It's that the underlying physics is crap. It's that the greenhouse effect is crap. The whole thing is crap from start to finish, and I just can't. It's just so much of a lie, so much bad science. I just can't. I can't live with myself if I don't come out the closet and tell all my greenie friends that we've been duped. And so that's what I did. So yeah.
You need to apologize to Tim Wilms.
I'm sorry, Tim.
What for? Do you know what you're apologizing?
I don't know. I'm just being a cuck.
You made me start early, and I told you that he wouldn't like that.
I didn't know. Sorry, Tim.
I told you before we went live that he wouldn't like it. You're like, oh, but I want to go live now.
It was like 2 minutes. I mean, come on. My wife doesn't get upset. My wife doesn't get upset with me if I'm early by 2 minutes.
Do you last 2 minutes?
No, I'm a conservative now. We're not interested in the woman's pleasure.
Oh my god, that's funny. Okay. All right, tell us a little bit about why you were a greenie, because obviously you were a former greenie. So you don't like to say you were a former lefty. You said this to me yesterday when we were testing out the software, but you did say that you were a former greenie, and that now you've sort of evolved more from that. What brought on that desire? Were you a bit of an environmentalist? You believe in like saving the earth sort of thing?
I was never a full on, but it was just more sort of sympathetic too. So when I was a teenager, I had the campaign for nuclear disarmament sign with a big Greenpeace rainbow. I had that, a giant one of that. I painted one of those on my wall that you could see it all the way from the street from. I gave money to Greenpeace in the 90s when I had a bit of cash.
How much?
Just the usual donation, $100 a month or whatever it was.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I looked at the pollution and I thought, yeah, I should do my little bit and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I was still living my life and doing normal things. So it's not like I was heavily researched into it or anything. It was just more of a sense of, yeah, there are big bad people out there. They're probably conservatives, and when you hear a campaign of making things cleaner and nicer and better, you think, well, yeah, I support that. And so for many years, I watched Al Gore's movie, and I thought, yeah, like Al Gore, don't like George Bush. George Bush invaded Iraq. I didn't think he should have invaded Iraq.
No, he shouldn't have.
I didn't like the all this I saw him from the conservative side was the warmongering Bush, the neocons kind of thing. So. And so I sort of pushed back against that. So and the greenies, I lived in Germany. There was a big green presence there, and so I sort of went along with it. But the problem is that as soon as you sort of just peel back the curtain a little bit, it just all falls apart very, very quickly, and you find out that the whole point of it, which is to oppose rich and powerful people who are doing dastardly deeds, they're the ones who are sponsoring the Greens. They're the ones who are behind it all. They're the ones who run the United Nations. They're the ones who
the Freemasons
run the bank. Not the Freemasons so much. It's just
the elites, the globalists.
The Club of Rome started off the whole environmental movement, run by David Rockefeller. whose father made all of his money in oil, you know, and they get called a big oil shill, you know. So you dig deeper and you find out the very people that you're sort of wanting to criticize, they're the ones who are actually pushing the lies to you about environmentalism. And
apparently these are the people to blame.
You know, some of them are. I only know one, and he's a very nice guy. It's not like I've met them. You know, it's like I've met David Rockefeller. I haven't met the Rothschilds.
No,
and it could, you know, I've only met Eli, and he's a really nice bloke. So, you know, I look back at, say, you know, you read say Mein Kampf or something or other, and you look at what was going on in that period of time. You can go, okay, well, were most of the Bolsheviks at the time, were they Jewish? Well, yes, they were. Is that something to do with their race, like Hitler believed, or was it to do with just the times and the way it worked out? And is it different now? Don't know. I mean, Tony Heller is a very well-known climate skeptic and doing a hell of a lot of good work to expose the scam, and he's Jewish. So, you know, I don't know.
So you evolved from sorry, the chat's making me laugh. So you evolved from being a greenie to then becoming more right-wing or right-leaning. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm a full-on ethnic nationalist these days.
You're an ethno-nationalist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why are you talking to a dirty stick?
Well, you know, it depends how you define the word, isn't it? Really, it's not like I've still got black friends, and I've still got gay friends, and I've still got people who, like, you know, I've got friends of all.
Defining the word dirty and stick.
Yeah, it's like, but there's a different matter between, you know, how you treat an individual as opposed to what makes a good policy for world peace. I want world peace. Okay, so I think that the best way to have world peace is for countries to generally be ethnically homogenous, not completely 100%. You don't have to get rid of every single person who's not exactly the right way, but to have,
you can get rid of my dad if you like.
Yeah, you know, just a bit of you know, so that that there is an overwhelming majority, and other people who come in are fitting into that majority, and then other groups, they have their countries. Like I wouldn't like to see Japan overrun with white people.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
So that's where I'm sort of moving to. And also, I suppose the reason I've moved further away, I mean, I went from sort of greenie to then to being a Liberal Democrat, and I was on the WA executive for a while.
Oh yeah, you know Mark Latham.
Yeah, I mean, so when Mark Latham was a Liberal Democrat, he sat down with the WA team for breakfast, and he was a nice bloke. And but yeah, you move further right because you find out who the really fit in. You find out who's trying to change it all, and what they want. And once you find out who the bad guys are and what they want, you oppose what they want.
Yes.
You know, so that's where I'm at. That makes sense. You know, so I found out what the United Nations want to do, and that's what I oppose.
The UN is a corrupt corporation in and of itself. Like, I do believe that they do good work in certain areas. They do, like, and they do. But like a lot of what they also do is they don't, you know, that the most persecuted religion on earth and the most persecuted people on earth are Christians, particularly in the Middle East. But shit all is said about that. Child slavery and sex slavery, shit all is said about that. Do you know what I mean? Like they touch more on male-female issues. It's like men are beating women up in Honduras and El Salvador and you know, these parts of Latin America, but they won't sort of outline that in the Middle East or in Pakistan. So I don't really, I don't trust the UN, and I think it's good that you don't either, because most people are aware of their lies.
Oh, I mean, they're the most evil group on the planet at the moment. Full stop, hands down. There is nothing more evil in the moment than the United Nations and what they're trying to do. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 are the two main programs, and it's all pervasive. And if you want to know why your local council are getting rid of Australia Day, and you want to know why your local council have got these plans for sea level rise when the tide gauges are showing nothing, it's basically because there's the local governments have tied into a UN program. They're getting, we send off our taxes, and then they go off to the UN, and then the UN distributes them back, and global government is their goal. So
yeah, global government is the goal. Yeah,
and I can't think of anything worse than having us all under, we talk about homogenous. I mean, a homogenous nation is a good thing. A homogenous world would be horrible.
Yes, that's true. That's absolutely right, and that's why I really struggle with the civic nationalism versus an ethno-nationalism argument. I've interviewed a very well-known ethno-nationalist. Her name is Lana Lochtep. She's of Red Ice TV, and she answered all my questions, but the whole audio stuffed up. So we're trying to find another time to redo the interview. But she's the first person, her and James Fox Higgins, who sort of really explained to me their position, and that I think ethno-nationalism changes with each individual. Everyone has a different idea of it and a different way with it. Some ethno-nationalists. What is going on? Why is all that noise?
I think it's probably Facebook is popping up some bloody thing. I'm about to go call my wife again. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Technical problems.
This is irrelevant to everything, but go ahead.
What's my favorite movie and why? Ooh,
I'm gonna guess.
I'm just gonna go my most topical one at the moment, which due to the death of Terry Jones, Life of Brian, is up there with one of my best ones because of the satire, not of religion, which he was accused of, but the satire of people mistaking religion and getting religion wrong, which was basically what the movie was about. It was just taking the piss out, and I just thought some of the jokes in that, some of the best things ever. I mean, them all standing on the cross at the end, singing "We'll always look on the bright side of life."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some wonderful things in there. Close Facebook, please.
Do you need your wife for that?
I probably do.
You do. You just click on the X on the tab.
What tab? I don't even know. Because if I minimize, I'm going to go out again.
Oh, okay. Get your wife then.
Oh God.
Dude, you gave Tim Wilms an amazing interview, and you're giving me all your garbage.
Well, that's because we were able to do that. On my. This is why. This is why you do. This is why you do phones on Skype instead of these things where I need the laptop for, and I don't use this damn laptop. Yeah, I don't even have Facebook on here.
You don't? Okay, well then I don't know. Don't worry about it.
Is Facebook on?
I have no clue.
It just keeps pinging.
Keeps pinging. You need to turn off the notifications or whatever.
I'm assuming it is.
Turn that bugger off.
I'll have.
This is so professional.
There, my head is in there. That's my claim to fame.
Actually, your head isn't in there because it's portrait. I'll put your head in now. There we go. Landscape.
Oh no! Don't show me. Ah!
Sorry, I'll put it back.
Oh, here we go. So, okay, I'll just. Yeah, I'm logging out. Just give me a second. Sorry, y'all. Okay, can you hear? There we go.
American wife. Yes. American woman.
Stay away from me. But you didn't stay away from her. You walked right up to her.
I know. Bad at following my own song advice. All right. We can now do the interview.
Back to the interview.
You can go to the interview.
Wow, you're a really odd friend. Okay. All right. So what is it? Okay, so you've done all this research, and you've even had scientists and other I don't know what the word is, the scientist word, but other people from the same profession, wankers, non-globalists, affirm your position, right?
Yeah, look.
So what is the main misconception? CO2 emissions, I would say, carbon emissions, and how dangerous that is for the environment. Would that be the most common misconception?
That would be what the majority of people focus on, is just that carbon dioxide is a carbon dioxide is a nutrient. It's not a pollutant. It's plant food. It's the most important nutrient on Earth, along with water vapor, which just so happens to be the other so-called greenhouse gas. I've ended up going a lot further. So I sort of discovered that the greenhouse effect itself is bad science. So we keep getting told about, we're going to become like Venus, or we're all going to fry because of this greenhouse effect. And what's being taught in the universities, you think that the rot is only in the sociology departments, but it's not. It's in the physics departments. It's the Marxist rot and the academic disintegration. It started about 100 years ago, and it's infected the physics departments first. So yeah, it's what I've been trying to get out to people and make people aware of, especially by doing a stupid book. Okay, so you see that it's not. I'm not being very, very serious. I'm being just as idiotic and stupid in my book as I am previously on here.
Oh, I love it. I'm a silly person. I'm not that serious. Someone in the chat's saying that I'm being too immature, but this is me. Like, if people don't like it,
do you want to know the real issue with climate change? The fundamental issue with climate change and the fundamental issue with climate science?
Yes.
It's boring as batshit.
But okay.
I'm serious. That is the fundamental issue with climate change. Is the subject is as boring as batshit, and because it's as boring as batshit,
everyone is talking about it.
But because it's as boring as batshit, no one will actually go into the science because science is boring. And so and most people didn't finish school because maths was a pain in the ass. Physics drove them nuts. And you listen to a climate science and he goes blah 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 thermodynamics blah blah greenhouse effect, and you go like and so you thought, I will trust the scientists. And
that's exactly it.
And that's so wrong, because 99% of scientists are full of shit. Doesn't matter what their subject is, that they're not cleverer than you. And so what I've tried to do in the book was, one, I wrote a book, Top Gear on climate science. It was a book just telling juvenile jokes and just sending the whole thing up and just trying to make people laugh, because the subject is as boring as batshit. So, for example, there's a physicist who tells all about the inflows and outflows of carbon dioxide, and I wanted to talk about his work. But rather than talk about his work, I talked about how Elvis got fat and his sphincter was in equilibrium with his mouth. All right?
Yeah.
Because that's more interesting and more fun. Is to read about how Elvis's mouth and his sphincter eventually came into some sort of equilibrium.
Yeah.
Right? His arsehole and his mouth finally came to an arrangement.
Pop culture references.
So that was one side of things. And then the other side of things of writing a stupid book rather than a science book, as well as getting people to read it, was also so people could stop putting scientists on pedestals, and they could stop thinking, oh, I can't debunk this because I'm not an expert. Now, any single one of you or any one of your audience, you could debunk parts of Einstein's theory in an instant. You can do it. Like if you just got rid of the idea that people who know about Einstein's theory of relativity are really clever, and then you just listen to what Brian Cox says about it, you go, the guy's a fucking moron. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Fair enough.
He'll say things. He'll say things to you like, we know that the Earth is 14 billion years old.
Yeah, which I don't know.
It's also 40 billion light years across. Okay, so think about that. It's 14 billion years old, and it's also, according to him, 40 billion light years across. 14 old, 40 billion across.
Yeah. Longitude and latitude.
And you just think 14 and 40, they're two numbers that don't match up. And you're so clever that you can't realize how stupid you are that these two numbers don't add up. And it's not like when Einstein came up with the theory that he was talking these numbers. He wasn't talking about these numbers. It's people since Einstein who've gone and interpreted theories and looked at the world and then gone, oh, that observation doesn't quite match up with what we used to know. But we know Einstein's great, so let's just fiddle with it until
Einstein was a Jew, by the way, a good Jew.
Who was?
Einstein was Jewish.
Well, there we go. Yeah, I mean, so...
Do you know who Richard Wollstonecraft is? I don't know who that is.
Name rings a bell. Probably on my Facebook list.
Apparently, he's your doppelganger.
Is he? Ah, okay.
Yeah. To me, you remind me a little bit of Gary Hume. You probably don't know who that is, though.
No.
He's just
obviously less famous than me.
Yes. Much less. No. Or the same. Who knows? Let's see what... well, something that they say, is Stephen a Christian? No, he's not, Margot. Something that they say, well, first of all, what do you think about the amazing hero of the world, Greta Thunberg?
I'm supposed to feel sorry for her because she's being abused by her parents and the global conglomerate, but I don't.
I think she's an actress.
She's a rich bitch. She's going to be a millionaire. I don't feel sorry for her at all. I think she didn't have her head flushed down the toilet enough at school. You know, there should have been more bullies. There should have been more bullies. You know, this is the problem.
Anything she says makes sense? Have you heard any of her speeches?
Well, how dare you? How dare you? That's all she says, isn't it? I mean, it makes sense in certain contexts, but not in any of the ones that she's using.
Well, she says you have stolen our childhood. How dare you? Excuse me.
Yeah, she did that too. That was very good. That was a very good impersonation. You've stolen our childhood. How dare you?
But do you find it like unusual or ridiculous that they're elevating her to this godhood status, and they're trying, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger's met her, and everyone thinks she's this hero just because she says a couple of words that apparently resonate?
Well, it was a campaign from the start. It was an orchestrated campaign. The people who have put her on a pedestal had already been in contact with her parents before she even sat down to have a photograph taken the first time. So, you know, what do you say about that? It's the worst thing about it is anybody who actually takes any notice of her. I can't blame evil people for doing evil things, but I can blame stupid people for believing them.
No, exactly right.
But yeah, I mean, look, the whole thing stems from the fact that we hold experts in too much esteem. We hold scientists in too much esteem. We need to get, you know, I agree. We talk about how, you know, there's a problem with bullying. I think that we need to return to bullying. We need to get more bullying back into schools.
It makes you resilient.
Well, more than that, it's the nerds get put in their place. I mean, they have the rest of their lives to rule the world. But if they had their heads flushed down the toilets more and had some more wedgies when they were younger, then they'd think twice about it when they're older, because they'd remember those strapping bullies who went on and ended up working in a coal mine for the rest of their lives, or working on a construction site, and they'd think twice because they would think, oh, I had a really horrible time at school, but now I'm in power, but you know, maybe I shouldn't. There's a great Michael.
I was bullied in school. It makes you strong.
So was I.
Yeah, it makes you strong. It makes you strong. It makes you realize who you can trust, how to love, even when you don't want to like someone. Because I was bullied by teachers, not just fellow students. So yeah. Anyway, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kidding about the bullying, but I mean, at the same time,
no, you know, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Everyone's a snowflake.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's more of just, I want them. I look at these people and I go, Why weren't you bullied more? If only you were bullied more, you know? Nerds, well, I mean, look at Brian Cox. I mean, for Christ's sake. Have you seen his lips? He's got these luscious lips. It just doesn't go with a nerd. It's not right. It's a crime against humanity that he's got these luscious lips and he's a nerd. Nerds are supposed to be ugly. Nerds are supposed to be introverted. Nerds are supposed to have computer-generated voices and walk around and go around in wheelchairs. And so
yes,
we've got a perverse situation at the moment where we're putting men on, I can't call them a man, you're putting male figures on TV to talk about scientists who some women are finding attractive. That's wrong. That's wrong. It's not allowed. There's got to be balance in the world. You know, the nerds get the brains, the rest of us get the looks.
Do you believe in gender roles? Do you believe in order? Do you believe man, woman, children, or do you think you can do you advocate for like men to change their bodies to simulate female bodies and vice versa, and this out of orderness? Because I believe God created order, and I believe what the left does is advocate and make disorder look beautiful. Do you believe in what? Well, they sort of advertise it, or being a pansexual and being gay and being lesbian and being transgendered is beautiful because you just have more options for love. You know, they turn this anti-God concept into something beautiful. Do you know what I mean?
If you take if we just assume the existence of God for the moment and then try and sort of put it into
well, we don't even have to assume God. We could just say
no,
it's out of order. We could just say it's out of order.
No, well, for the point,
okay.
The universe functions because 1 + 1 = 2. Okay, it sounds like a stupid statement, but it's one of the most profound things. If anywhere in the universe 1 + 1 didn't equal 2, the universe couldn't exist.
Sure.
Everything adds up. So all kinds of mathematics adds up. And what the left does, it plays with probability mathematics. It plays on risk. We've been given probability mathematics is the mathematics of free will.
Yes.
Okay. So in the Bible and any decent religious text, it will tell you about karma, about consequences. It will tell you about the things that you're not supposed to do. Yeah?
Yeah.
And there is a reason it's not supposed to do it, is because if you do things you're not supposed to do, you're going to go against how the universe works. And you can do it for a while, and you can get away with it for a while, but sooner or later, 1 + 1 must equal 2, and there must be a reckoning. So what the left does is what Christianity does, what all good philosophies do, is they talk about the difference between the now and delayed gratification. So all of the things delayed. So you can take the pleasure now, which is what the left is all about. Take the pleasure now, and you can.
Instant gratification.
Instant gratification, but there is a consequence to pay down the track. You can choose, but you can't choose the consequences of your choices. You must live with the consequences of your choices. And so anybody who's delved into, for want of a better word, sin, they will know how empty and unfulfilling it becomes. It's all great to start off with, but the longer you go on with it, the more you're more dissatisfied you feel, the less purpose you seem to have in life, the less reason you have for being. And that's why so many people end up, who live their life that way, end up committing suicide.
It's sad.
Because they have there is no reason for their existence. It's just there's nothing to build, there's nothing to leave behind, there's nothing to work and create and strive for. So
I agree with your analysis completely. It's really funny because I was really excited some time ago. I managed to get a relatively well-known former transgendered woman. His name is Walt Heyer. I don't know if you're aware of him, but he was a young boy when he used to dress up as a little girl at his grandmother's house. The grandmother used to dress him up as well, and so he became confused.
Yeah, I
You
have heard
have?
the story. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And years later, he lived as Laura for like 8 years. He lived as Laura, and he left his wife and his children to live as Laura, and he was happy and he loved it, but he was superficial happy. It wasn't genuine happy, and he realized later on he was misdiagnosed. He was not a female, and he never was. He's a simulation of a female. If he died and you were to look at his pelvic bone, you'd know that that was genetically male. That was not a female. So he changed back. He found Christ. He changed back, and now he's married to another woman. But my point is that I said to him in the interview, I said, I feel like it's just going to get worse. More and more and more and more children are going to be sterilized, and the world and the globalist agenda, which is, I think, to lessen the amount of humans that are around, and to less, because we're almost 9 billion or 8 billion. I'm not sure, but we're over 7 point something billion. So we're almost 8 billion, 9 billion. And I think the only way to do that is for like the world or the globalists to promote, let's make children sterile, and let's promote this and promote this and promote this, so that all that's left over are the weirdos. And but Walt said to me that he believes that it has to go back, because eventually people will realize how much they've stuffed it up. And so like 300-400 years from now, they'll go back and go, wow, that was a stupid time in humanity, changing little boys to little girls and little girls to little boys. And that's part of the question I asked you about order, because order is being destroyed. And, if you think that a boy should be a boy and a girl should be a girl, somehow you're some sort of a bigot. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, it is ridiculous. And look, I mean, the agenda to reduce the population has been, you can go back to Arthur C. Clarke and before in the 1960s, and they've been pushing around the figure of 500 million to a billion for decades now, and it's never left them. It was very, very big in the 1970s with a guy called Paul Ehrlich, who wrote a book called The Population Bomb. And
okay.
And none of his predictions came to pass, but it's not changed the mindset and the goals of the people who are pushing this kind of stuff. And yeah, it all kind of ties in, sadly. Sorry, I'm getting crowdfunding. Sorry, what are you doing? Getting the cat?
No, the lighting is really bad.
The lighting's really bad.
Is it?
Oh,
I think
technician. Sorry, technician.
I'm watching
My
it.
cat
It's
just
like really
vomited.
bad. Open it.
There we go. Am I? Sorry. There we go.
Sorry.
All
You
right,
look fine
there we
to
go.
me.
Yeah. So if my wife finds a problem with me, it has to be fixed immediately.
You have a good woman.
I have a very good woman.
Yes.
So what was I saying? So that's been around the news of Malthus. The real guy to look for the origin of all of this is a guy by the name of Thomas Malthus, who was an English lord about 200 years ago, who saw basically the industrialization process happening, and he saw poor people breeding and not dying like they were supposed to die. And he said, look, if we keep allowing poor people to breed, then this is going to cause a crisis. It's going to cause a crisis. And and that leads on then to the Democrats and the Nazis in the 20s and 30s with the eugenics movement, again trying to stop useless eaters from breeding, because the stupid people are more likely to have sex than refined people, and and so stupid people. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah. Oh, you are awful. But
I have my moments. I'm sorry. I was just trying to be funny. I know, but one person in the chat's annoyed at the funny banter. But this is actually how I prefer to interview, like being funny. Okay, I wanted to ask you about back to the carbon emissions and all that kind of stuff. A lot of those solutions actually hurt the environment. For example, the windmills, don't they kill birds? Aren't they killing thousands upon thousands of birds?
Everything about the solutions is doing the opposite of what they're saying they're going to do. It's raising power prices. It's making more pollution. It's killing more birds. You take wind turbines, for example, and
Yes.
solar panels. So, obviously the wind turbines kill tons of birds and bats, but also in terms of resources, because wind is intermittent and it can basically shut off at any moment, it doesn't matter how many wind turbines you put up, you've always got to have the old coal-fired power station or the gas-fired power station or a nuclear power station or the hydro. You've still got to keep it. You can't get rid of it. Because so what you've got, rather than just the coal-fired power station and all the pollution that comes with that, you've got now the wind farms and all the pollution that came with building that. And so it's not, you actually double the pollution. You don't halve it. You make more of it. And we're starting to see the beginnings of the pollution crisis from wind turbines and solar panels, because
interesting.
The first load of them are starting to come to the end of their lifespans, and they're having to be replaced. It's not like the wind turbines themselves are free energy. The wind turbines, they consume resources and they get used up and they have to be thrown away. And we're getting to the point now where we're going to start having millions and millions of solar panels that we're going to have to dispose of, millions and millions of wind turbine blades, and it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, and the left still try to convince us that that's not the way.
Because the left are only concerned with bringing down civilization. That's all they want to do.
Well, it's funny because I remember when Bolsonaro, I forget his name, the Brazilian president was getting copping a lot of flack because of the Amazonian people. And the left was saying, we need to protect the Amazonian people. We need to preserve them. They need to be preserved. And he's burning down the rainforests. The funny thing is, though, the left is completely and adamantly opposed to white preservation of people, but completely for the preservation of the Amazonian people. Now, I Bolsonaro. Oh, thank you, Sputnik. So I found that really, like, they don't realize just how stupid they are, and how the cognitive dissonance of their double standards is ridiculous. And I know Brazilians. I'm friends with many, and they've told me that the Amazonians themselves are in the deals. They want the money. Like they're being forced to be preserved, and they don't want to be. They want to integrate into society.
Yeah,
it's so stupid.
It's all about wanting to reduce the population of Earth. It's wanting to get rid of Western civilization. It's wanting to get rid of the Industrial Revolution. When they say they want to, like when Leonardo DiCaprio says, I want to preserve the Amazon, or I want to preserve the Great Barrier Reef. I want to save it. I want to save it. I want to save it from humanity. No, he wants to save it for himself. That's what he wants. He wants it all to himself. He wants all the other people dead. It's like Prince Philip, who started up the World Wildlife Fund, who's sectioned off all of these areas in Africa that can't be developed. Why? Because he likes to go hunting.
There you go.
Why stop safari hunts? Because if everybody does it, then he can't.
That's so bad. Like that. How can you be driven by that level of self-greed? I don't get that.
It's the whole, it's like the monarchies and the old kings not allowing the peasants to eat the royal deer. It's that idea just taken on. It's like we the rich people. What's the point of being rich if we can't do things that other people can do? What's the point of having all this money, wealth, and power if we can't lord it over everyone? If we can't have things exclusively we can do?
But they can. They're richer than all of us. They can already.
But it's not. It's never enough. Never enough.
No,
and that's the whole. And again, that comes back to the whole sort of satanic idea and and why so many of them are into pedophilia and all kinds of horrible things. So.
Prince Andrew. Yeah,
Prince Andrew. Yeah.
Well, they're your royal family. You're a Brit.
They're yours too. You're Australian. Have you never heard the Poms at the cricket and in the Ashes?
Yeah, I've heard of that, but I'm a dirty
God
Spaniard.
save your gracious queen, long live your gracious queen. God save your queen. Yeah, so
no, you're not wrong. I'm trying to find questions that were in the audience earlier today. Hang on.
herbal tea.
Oh, okay. That's fine. You can drink whatever you like. Tim Wilms wants to take the pleasure now. I don't know what that means, but okay.
Just get an icon of him here. Sorry, that was
right.
from my decadent. That was a joke from my decadent leftist days. That one. That was very sexual. Sorry.
You're allowed to be a little lefty. Even I realized that I was slightly leftist in some ways. Okay, I can't find the question that I saw earlier, which was really good. Oh, this isn't the one. Is there a connection between climate change and the Wuhan coronavirus?
No, but there is probably a connection between the scares of killer viruses that are going around, that have gone around over the past 10, 20 years, and the UN agenda. The World Health Organization is notorious for putting out fake scares about Ebola and swine flu and goodness knows what else. And it wouldn't surprise me if this coronavirus turns out to be another little false flag or run through, because at the end of the day, if you look at any program that's pushed by the UN, the goal is global control. It's the ability globally to tell us all what we can and can't do. Yeah. So if you think about all the virus scares and what it means, well, you can, if there's an emergency of any kind, a climate emergency or a pandemic emergency,
it's not an emergency.
Or a refugee emergency. Well, what can you do in an emergency which threatens all of humankind and life on the planet, blah, blah, blah? Well, what you can do is you can suspend everybody's rights. You can get rid of all sovereignty. You can say, I'm sorry, it was a crisis. We can impose martial law. You can do all of these things. Now, they haven't tried to impose martial law yet, but they're doing it in China.
Yes, they are. The social scoring system. It's ridiculous.
So but also with the coronavirus, they've shut down entire cities. And it's a very nice little...
it's like AIDS.
Yeah, it's a very nice little way to sort of practice what they would like to do, which is to say, okay, no one can go from A to B unless we say so. Everyone stays here and does as we tell them to do. Everyone has to do as they're told.
It's martial law.
Martial law. So martial law is currently imposed in around Wuhan and a few other places around there. And I'm sure lots of people who would like to see the same sort of thing in the West will be looking at this and going, how well did that work?
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. All right, there's another question here. What are your feelings about the alternative media?
They're the only media. They're the only media.
That's right. We will dominate.
Yeah.
World domination.
World domination. Yeah.
Why did we bother curing AIDS? What a stupid question, Beaver. Because it was bad. People having sex with monkeys shouldn't then lead to people also getting sick from it. Sorry, that was probably to you. Go ahead, answer his question.
I didn't even know it was cured.
It's not cured, but you can stop it from. It's not cured, but like you now no longer die from it. You don't.
Oh, so you can. So you can pay money for the rest of your life and keep yourself alive. Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's not. It's true that. Do you believe? Sorry, this is my question, and this just came into my head. I have a guest that's coming on my show again this year because I had him on last year, and it was just the worst audio. It was disgusting. He was so delayed. But his name is Jimothy, and he's a Nigerian British fellow now living in Australia. You might know him. No, just because he's British. Anyway, point is that he and many others believe that there's a chance that many diseases have already been cured, but that hasn't been divulged to us, Mr. Average Joe. Do you believe that that's a thing, or do you believe that it's the other way around, where they're making us sick and that they're trying to rid the world of more people?
Either could be true.
Yeah.
I've no way of verifying or falsifying either proposition, or other than to say is that on both propositions, I wouldn't put it past certain people.
I would agree. Yeah. This is one of my moderators. I have two fantastic moderators. Benjamin is asking, the more you dig into it, the more you realize that everything is basically a conspiracy against true Christianity. Have a look at proving/disproving the resurrection of Jesus. You should accept his challenge and then you'll become a Christian. Every single person that's tried to disprove the Bible has become a Christian. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's probably not true, but many have.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's on my to-do list this year is to actually read the Bible properly for myself. So I haven't done it since I was in Church of England school when I was a kid. So.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah.
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have developed a vaccine for the. I didn't know that, the coronavirus.
Yeah.
How convenient that they're also the head of eugenics.
How convenient that the virus has only just been discovered and already there's a vaccine for it.
Bill Gates is probably part of it.
It's the thing about the whole conspiracy movement, and you have to, like, as soon as you find like one, you can't but help to then go down the rabbit hole and see what else you're being lied about.
Exactly.
And the problem is that there's conspiracies on conspiracies, and there are false flag conspiracies, things that people put up there just to try and lead you off the path. There are stupid conspiracies, and at some point you got to sort of pull yourself back out the rabbit hole and say, okay, well, this I know to be false. This I don't know whether it's true or false, but I'll remain skeptical and open-minded. This is obviously complete and utter bullshit, and you got to sort of find your own level of skepticism, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I've gone down them all. I mean, have you ever looked at the flat Earth videos?
I actually watched a couple of flat Earth videos, and not too long ago, I joined some flat Earthers.
They're funny. They're a funny bunch. I met one for real. I met one for real the other day at.
I met a couple.
Like in the flesh kind of thing, and I'm like, oh my god, it's not just a computer bot. They actually exist. There are real people who believe this shit.
But they believe that the technology must have existed back in the days when man stepped on the moon and taken the photos, so somehow those photos have been manipulated to be a flat Earth. Like, I don't agree with them, but I stand up for their right to believe whatever the hell they want.
Well, I mean, you can't stop people believing what they believe. What says a bit of Shakespeare: "A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still."
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, but it's quite depressing at the same time. Is that you get people on the green side of things believing that the Earth's going to end in 12 years, and then on the other side you get people believing that the Earth is flat.
It's a little. I don't even know what this question means. What is the best Depeche Mode album or song, and why? Who's Depeche?
My own personal Jesus is my favorite song of theirs. I don't know the albums very well, but that's my favorite song of theirs. You don't know who Depeche Mode is?
No.
You don't know who Depeche Mode is?
Are they well known?
This is why the world is going to pot. I mean, the young generation.
Maybe it's because
the young generation. God.
I don't know who they are, but I love ABBA.
This is why we let old white men rule the world.
Well, white men should. I believe that, like, look, I have an issue with certain women in politics. I think certain women need to stay away from politics. I'm a commentator. I'm not in politics. Like, I feel like I'm still in my lane, sort of thing. I like gender roles.
If we could just put Sarah Hanson Young in a kitchen somewhere and get her out of politics, that would be great.
Barefoot and pregnant.
Barefoot and pregnant, I think.
Yeah. Oh, look, everyone's angry at me. There's one there. I'm so sorry. I feel bad. The funny thing is, I know a lot of music before my time and a lot of actors and movies before my time. Like, I'm huge on, like, Marilyn Monroe, Grace Kelly. But, yeah, I don't know who Depeche Mode is.
Well, you know, that's your education starts tonight, I'm afraid. As soon as this podcast is finished, you go straight online. And,
yeah, exactly.
You look up some Depeche Mode.
I do, Benjamin. I haven't read it yet, but I do have it behind me.
Yeah, Christianity is important for Western civilization. And
that's the first thing you said tonight. It is, isn't it? You can't be without it.
Regardless of my my sins and my inability to fully embrace everything, my moral values wouldn't exist if Christianity through the Western European system hadn't been there. The whole, the whole history in England, especially of trying to find the relationship with God and the Church, and the commoners and the Church. Yeah, but I mean that whole thing, the whole Enlightenment era, wouldn't have come about had there not been this movement to find God individually and to move away from the abuses of the medieval Catholic Church. And even if you're a Catholic today, well, I know I was christened Catholic.
So was I.
So regardless of what the religion is today or its inherent values, still everything that's gone before and all the reforms and the whole, as I said, the Renaissance would never have existed without Christianity. We would never have had that. The Declaration of Independence wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the search for truth that was led by basically people saying, okay, well, you're the Pope, you've been doing bad things. We want to find the truth for ourselves. So yeah, the Enlightenment is fake and gay.
Very, very intellectual comment.
It could be. It could have been the beginning of the end as well. Who knows?
Could have been. Something that I saw on a PragerU video. Do you know Prager University?
Yeah. I got their things in my email. Yeah.
Yeah, they're fabulous. But one of the videos that they basically it was on Stop Climate Change Alarmism. Why do you think that the alarm? So what they're trying to say is that not PragerU, but what the left is trying to say is that we need to somehow lower the temperature of the Earth to a certain amount, or the world will be over in 12 years. How do you counter argue that?
Yeah, I mean, without sort of going into, they've been predicting the end of the world since the beginning of the world, and the ice caps were supposed to have melted in 2013, and the Maldives were supposed to be underwater now, or 20 years ago. I think by the end of the century, they said that the Maldives were supposed to be underwater, and yet now the Maldives has just opened a brand new runway worth millions of dollars, and it's just how can you, if you don't need to know anything about science to realize that every single prediction, not only has it been wrong, but the exact opposite has happened. And
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh God! I mean, what a numpty she is, isn't she? I mean, and she's another one who was manufactured. Another one who was auditioned. She was auditioned. I mean, she doesn't even do. She's got a little more ad lib ability than Greta, but at the same time, she was auditioned. She was auditioned for the Young Turks. The Young Turks society basically knew what kind of a person they wanted, and they auditioned for someone to go and do the actress's role, and they found her.
And they chose a Latina.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
should have chosen me. No. I've got a couple of questions here, or at least a couple of interesting statements. Biba anti-bullying, we just need to paganize Christianity slightly so that only white people believe in our version, then get rid of all non-Christians who don't believe what we do. That's funny. That's so bad.
What do you mean by get rid of?
Yes, on an island.
Precisely how do you wish to get rid of them?
Yeah, that's funny. That's not a question, so never mind. Let's have a look. Sarah Hanson Young is my friend. She enjoyed my postering campaign last election. What did you use? What kind of postering did you do? Did you mock her in the posters? What else?
Go David Lionhelm. That's all I can say. Go David Lionhelm.
David Lionhelm, yeah.
Good luck with the appeal, mate. You know, you can't call a woman a slut. What can you do these days?
Well, the thing is, if a woman is a slut, then she's a slut. It's funny when I get called a slut. It's the funniest thing on earth because everyone knows I'm not. So when I get called it, I love it. I'm like, cool. Apparently, I've had sex with like 10 different people on the right, and you know,
only 10.
Well, I mean, I'm a good girl.
10 people. That's just losing your virginity if you're on the left.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Yeah, and I've had 25 abortions.
Yeah.
Oh, for those who are just watching right now, what is your opinion on abortion? Because I know what it is, but I just want those listening to know.
Yeah, I'm pro-life all the way. I'm also against the assisted suicide thing.
Same.
And the main reason is because the people who are pushing it, they're not wanting it for the reasons they say, that it's the same part of the.
Agree.
You know, it comes from the same place. It comes from the same people,
Place of evil.
And therefore you don't trust it. And whatever rational arguments you think you're hearing, you need to relook at them.
They're not rational. They're emotive.
They're emotive, and the abuse has already started in places where they've got it. The thing about life is you've got one. You've got one life, and every life has suffering. So on the euthanasia argument, every life has suffering, and who's to say when's enough?
Yes.
Grand solar minimum theory. Yeah, I'm waiting to find out if that's going to pan out or not. So, for people who don't know, there is a group of scientists.
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay, so there's a group of scientists who study the sun, generally plasma physicists who have got a different view of how the sun is actually put together, and they are. Yeah, but how? He did it in a certain way, you know. Like he had an idea. He spoke the earth into existence. I'm a creationist. Yeah, but he spoke the word into an existence with an IKEA chart.
Okay.
Okay, so you just have to follow the IKEA chart, and you'll see how he did it. So grand solar minimum theory says that the sunspots have diminished. The electromagnetic radiation of the sun has changed, and the last time it did this, there was a big cooling period. And there are a lot of scientists now predicting that over the next 10 years, not only will it not get hotter, but it's going to get significantly colder. So that's what they're predicting.
Oh, well, it is cold.
Oh, it's
at least it is in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's always cold in Melbourne unless it's hot. But yeah, they're predicting that the world's going to get significantly colder in the next few years.
I agree. I actually agree with that. I think that might be the case. I think this whole the Earth getting hotter thing isn't the case, but I don't know.
Well, we'll find out. And this is the great thing about when science is done properly. You have a prediction that can be tested in our lifetimes. You know, you find out who is right and who is wrong. I'm inclined to think that there's something in it, but because it's a prediction, we'll wait and see.
Okay.
In the long term,
Enoch Powell. Is this a scientist?
He's a British politician.
Okay.
Back in the 1960s, when they started importing people from Jamaica and elsewhere and India into Britain, and he said that
we have a bobsled team.
And there's going to be rivers of blood, was his speech. There'll be rivers of blood if we keep doing this. Because
he's not wrong.
So I think,
Isn't London the #1 city with the most stabbings?
Yeah, it's just it's just surpassed New York. But yeah, I mean, there is severe racial tension in England. There is severe cultural tension. There is obviously a real problem with Muslims, and I think it's going to get worse.
Yeah, well, it's already gotten worse.
Lord Christopher Monckton, alarmist equation. Yeah, I know Christopher Monckton is what I call a lukewarmer. So he believes that the greenhouse effect is real. He vehemently disagrees with me when I say that the greenhouse effect itself is bogus. His equation basically says that if you believe the original physics about the greenhouse effect, then even if you believe that, their mathematics is wrong anyway, which is correct on. The mathematics is wrong if you believe their theory. It's just that I go one step further than Lord Monckton, and I will tell you that the greenhouse effect itself is not real.
Do you understand what that means? You know what that means, do you?
The rupture instead of the rapture?
I think he meant rapture, but yeah.
It's talking about my vasectomy.
Let's have a look at this. What do you think of E. Michael Jones? I'm assuming, obviously, that's the question is.
I don't know who E. Michael Jones is.
Oh, good. That makes me feel better. All right, what about this? The greenhouse effect better be real or we'd all freeze to death at night. I don't reckon. It's going to be a slow process. It'll happen to our 100 times great-grandchildren.
There is a thing called an atmospheric effect. So the atmosphere has an atmosphere, but it's not dependent upon the gases that are in the atmosphere to cause that effect. That's the difference. So what he means is that like you go to the moon, there's no atmosphere. So obviously there's no greenhouse effect on the moon, and the moon cools down to -200 at night, and it heats up to 120 degrees during its days, and the atmosphere on Earth stops that from happening. Water is especially very good for evening out temperatures.
Oh, okay.
Ian Plummer, great guy. Met Ian a couple of times. Helped him with his presentation. Helped film one of his presentations here in Perth. Superb guy, full of knowledge, especially on geology, which is obviously his main science, and he can tell you everything there is to know about the history of geological Earth and what the temperature was, cool. 1,000 years, 10,000 years. Connolly brothers, yeah, this is real funny. So there is and I was in contact with the Connollys really early on when they were just starting their theory. So the Connolly brothers are a family of Irish environmentalists. All right, so the Connollys, one of the things that they did for the environment is they patented a new way of fish farming in the ocean, so you don't have to go trawling everywhere. So that's one of their things they've done to sort of reduce the number of fish that are being sort of stripped from the ocean by all of these trawlers. But they have got degrees up to their eyeballs. They're physicists, mathematicians, they've got PhDs coming up left, right, and center. And they've just spent 5 years examining all of the weather balloon data. So all over the world, every day, they send up a weather balloon with some things on it. And I'll come back to that one. So all through the weather balloon data, and they've found out, they've basically confirmed what I believe, which is that there is no greenhouse effect. That the atmosphere is in what's called thermal equilibrium due to gravity. So what causes the temperature to be on this planet what it is, it's because of a thing called gravity, which isn't in any of the equations of the climate alarmists, which you think is kind of strange that you would leave out gravity, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's a little odd.
They found that, and what's interesting is Lord Monckton has been for years saying that there is a greenhouse effect, but he loves the Connollys so much that he's been going around and promoting their work, and so he, on the one hand, he's saying there is a greenhouse effect. There is a greenhouse effect. Please don't misunderstand me. There is a greenhouse effect. It just can't cause any warming.
Oh, okay.
All right. So the greenhouse effect, the whole point of the greenhouse effect is it's supposed to have caused 33 degrees of warming already, but apparently it's real, but it can't cause any warming, according to Lord Monckton. So there you go. The moon. Yeah, how could we land the moon during daylight? Well, the moon's days are very long, and if you get up in the morning, it's not the top temperature. It's not 40 degrees when you wake up here in Perth. It's usually a bit cooler than that, and that's how you land on the moon without getting your bottom scorched.
Do you know the British blogger Morgoth or YouTuber Millennial Woes?
Not yet. Not yet.
I read
A friend yet to be, obviously.
Did we just answer this one? Yeah, we did. Okay, let's go to
the ideal gas theory. Yeah, we're going to get into technical science too much if I go into the ideal gas law. But basically, any fridge mechanic will know about it, and any person who installs air conditioners will know about the difference.
I told you get this
right. In Sudetenland, no, he wasn't. That was the worst thing about Hitler was his idea of Lebensraum, and also having all of the German people in one country rather than in multiple countries. China is making the same mistake right now with Taiwan. China, by the way, is no longer communist. China is now fascist.
They call themselves communist capitalists, but they're definitely fascist.
Well, communist capitalists are fascists. That's what they are.
Yes.
So you're allowed, private enterprise exists, but it exists for the benefit of the state.
What about Mel Gibson's theory on climate change? What is Mel Gibson's theory on climate change?
Jews are bad, isn't that what Mel Gibson said?
Well, the good thing is he loves the Lord. The movie he made, The Passion of the Christ, he made Jesus suffer, and that really gets to your heart. Like, yeah.
Well, you know, I was very glad in that movie that they didn't show anyone kicking Jesus in the balls, because that's the one thing I can't watch. So I can watch crowns of thorns being put on your head, but you know, there's certain things that you shouldn't do to a man. So I'm glad he didn't go there.
But in any movie you ever watch of the like 60s, 70s, and 80s that has like slapstick comedy, kicking someone in the balls is always a funny thing to do.
It is, and I can't watch it.
What if it's a cartoon? What if it's like on The Simpsons?
I got kicked in the balls for the first time when I was 6 years old, and I've never gotten over it. It's just
I got kicked in the balls as well. No, just kidding.
Well, yeah, which is why you transitioned.
That's why. Exactly. Transgender
therapy can do some good.
Yes, no more kicks in the balls. I just had it inverted. Yuck.
That's how you invert it. You kick someone in the balls and it goes in.
And it just goes in and it's done. This will have to be the last question.
Fibonacci numbers. Yeah, look at my friend Anthony Morris, the numerical universe, a friend I used to know from the cruise ships days, and very, very clued in on how numbers make the universe work and how everything is ordered. And my friend Anthony, by the way, is a definite Christian and a believer in God, and he believes that what he has discovered about numbers basically makes it impossible for there to be anything else than a God. So there you go. Anthony Morris.
That's fantastic. But I actually, didn't they say Stephen, what was it, Hawkins, proved that the theory of God, and then he wanted to disprove it, and he spent like the rest of his life trying to disprove the original theory that there was a God. I'm like, what the hell? I saw the movie. Now, I don't know how biographically accurate that was, but if that's really what happened, what a moron. Like, he proved God somehow with maths or whatever. I think you're frozen.
No, I'm just very still.
Oh, no. You are very still. But yeah. Have you heard that before?
I think in the movie it's black holes that he proves, and then he goes on about trying to disprove it, and that's the point of it about science. That
was God. Somehow they alluded to that somehow proving God.
Yeah,
I don't remember the specifics.
The purpose of a scientist supposedly is to
prove and disprove.
It's to try and falsify. It's to try and falsify common beliefs. It's to find the truth by testing them. So you try and the purpose of science is you try and falsify something. So if someone says to you, Thor creates lightning.
Yeah.
Well, if as a scientist would say, well, okay, I'm going to try and falsify that. I'm going to try and disprove it. Okay, so that doesn't really mean too much. But I mean, Stephen Hawking, I don't believe Stephen Hawking was even speaking himself. I think people were programming his computer and making him say dumb shit towards the end of his life. There's no way of knowing, because it was all
But when he was walking and when he was like still a brain, like he was probably a brain the whole time, but when he was like walking and able to talk and stuff, he said he believed in God in the movie. Now that might have been artistic license, but it seems to me like he believed in God at the start and then tried to disprove God later. I don't mean that literally, but I just mean that like he proved something that kind of backed up biblical theory or something, and then he tried to disprove it later. Like that to me, I find that retarded. That's all.
You're quoting Hollywood. I mean,
I am. Exactly. No, that's it. Yeah. The movie might be wrong.
Let's just assume that everything they put about Stephen Hawking was bullshit, and
yeah,
then
exactly.
go back from there. You know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I hope you've had a good time on the show today. I definitely have. I know we started out playing a little bit silly at the start, but I feel like we definitely stayed on topic and we spoke about other things as well. Spatnik, if you want to buy his book, click on the link in the description box below. It links up to his Amazon website.
But if you just type in "Confessions of a Climate Change Denier" into the Amazon search, it will. It's the only title with that title, so it will pop up. So "Confessions of a Climate Change Denier" on Amazon. Yeah, buy it to be entertained first, and if you learn something along the way, well, that was an accident.
Yeah, well, that's good. I think it's good to be. I actually have a flat earther book in my car. I just haven't read it. Someone gave it to me. I might read it one day.
I mean, whenever I'm not watching, you know, some Netflix Satanist thing, then I go straight to a flat Earth video.
Well, why not? Like, I think that's interesting.
Best entertainment in the world. I've never laughed so hard.
Because you understand the way the Earth is, and I don't. I'm not a sciencey person, but unlike a lot of other.
You watch the sunset at night, though, don't you?
Yeah, I've done it before.
So you have seen the sun go under the horizon.
Yes.
So there you go. The Earth is not flat.
Indeed. What is the best Jean-Claude Van Damme movie? The one with Kylie Minogue.
Well, the one I always quote is the promo for is double the impact, double the action, double the Van damage. Double. But the one I actually like is Cyborg. Cyborg is my favorite.
Cyborg? I don't even remember any of his films. I just remember thinking, wow, he's so cute but short.
I just, you know, it was all about the splits for me. You know, it was just watching those legs spread, you know.
Oh, was he the one that did that truck thing? He was on the side of two trucks and he did the splits on the truck and they kept driving.
He did splits everywhere. He did splits in midair. His legs were just. It was like Sarah Hansen Young. They just parted everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a flat earther. The Bible even says that the planet Earth is spherical. So the Bible affirms it. I'm not gonna be a flat earther.
Good.
Yeah.
See, you are already a qualified scientist right here and now. Congratulations, PhD on its way.
Except that if the left is watching this, they're going to be like, oh my God, she just admitted to be a creationist. Like, they're going to think I'm an idiot. Because if you're a creationist, you're clearly stupid.
Well, you know, their evolution is being challenged all the time.
And it keeps changing. The age of the Earth keeps changing. And most anthropological sources agree that there was a great flood. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who wants to sort of have an alternative history of Earth that's still sort of science-based, look up the Thunderbolts Project and the Electric Universe guys.
What's that about?
So they're basically, along with many other things about how the Earth works and challenging Einstein and that kind of stuff, they've also looked at some of the creation myths and where they've come from. And they've been finding some interesting things in the plasma labs that a lot of, say, look at the Aboriginal pictures and how stupid the animals look.
Yeah.
So and then you look at other places and the animals also look just as stupid, and you think, well, couldn't people draw back then? And so what they've now started finding is that some of these patterns, they appear deep in space in telescopes, the same patterns. And then they've also found that if they do certain things with electricity in the lab, that these patterns will form in sand and stuff. And so what they're theorizing is that about 10,000 years ago, the planets in our solar system weren't the way they are now, and a big cataclysmic event happened, and it was visible to see for everyone across the sky, and all of the different peoples around the world saw it, and they all recorded it, and this is why, and they started seeing what looked like animals in the sky in different patterns, and that's why you see all the animals. And so it's a very interesting theory, and so that
is interesting.
So yeah, if you want to look into sort of alternative histories of Earth, which still sort of has an empirical background to it, then you know, I don't know whether they're true or not, but I've certainly been interested in what they've had to say. So Electric Universe, Thunderbolts Project. Yeah, it was a false prophet. Yeah, Muhammad was a dirty, nasty, horrible person.
Yeah, exactly. Be careful. I don't want to get my channel. But
no, sorry, too late.
No, that's okay. I put it on the screen for people to read, but I wasn't going to say it.
You didn't say anything. Okay, well
That's fine.
I'm just waiting for my Facebook page to get banned. It's been
I unpublished my page today. I unpublished it myself.
I don't think any greenies or Muslims would have stayed with the show for long enough yet. I think they'd have tuned out at the beginning. Oh, it's a climate change denier.
Yeah.
So they're gone.
Well, do you know what's funny? I knew this and I forgot, but apparently, this is off topic, but the Aboriginal people of Australia, the left in particular, often say always was, always will be Aboriginal land, but that's not true. There were pygmies here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was recently looking it up. I was reading about it, and I actually put it up on my Telegram account about the pygmies and how interesting it was. They look Aboriginal in that they're black and that they have similar features, but they're little. They're really short. And the Aboriginal people, they lived up in the jungles or the rainforests of Queensland or something like that. And a lot of them were decimated by the Aboriginal people. So it always was, always will be pygmy land. And the left tries to hide it. And if you look for photos of them, their existence has been almost erased. I found that really interesting. It might make an interesting YouTube video. I'm not sure, but yeah, it wasn't originally Aboriginal land, or it might have been. Maybe they shared it. I'm not really sure. But
well, you know, I'm still waiting for reparations from the Norman conquests. You know, I'm quite upset really that that my ancestral homelands were taken over by these garlic eating half French, half Danish people. So,
yeah. That's funny. Well, yeah, I'm half Spanish, half Colombian. So my half of me did horrible shit to the other half of me. So.
Ah, well, well, the Spanish side was fighting with my wife's Portuguese side for a while. So
yeah, probably.
You and my wife should probably be enemies. Although she's also half Polish, so
Oh, really?
Polish.
Your wife is a lovely mix of a European smorgasbord.
Well, yeah. So half the family comes from emigrated from Poland, and the other half emigrated from Madeira.
But she's American.
American, yeah. So she keeps saying, "I'm half Polish, and I'm half Polish. I'm half Polish, half Portuguese." Now you're 100% American, is what you are.
Yeah.
But it shows you how deep our roots go and how it is important.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all about race preservation. I didn't used to be. I used to think mixing was great, and I still do. Like, I don't think you should treat anyone badly just because a white person chose to marry a black person, and lots of people are beautiful, physically more attractive than your purebloods, like Jessica Alba, or that's just the first person that comes to mind. But yeah, I believe in race preservation somewhat, and I'm not like an outright ethno-nationalist. I don't think I am. I think I'm in the middle of civic nationalism and ethno-nationalism, but I get both arguments.
I'm not into the whole you ban people from marrying each other. But what you don't do is you don't have a policy of if everybody who is coming into a country is coming in sort of organically and not because of some kind of what's the word, false manufactured program. So immigration at the moment is manufactured.
Absolutely.
Now, if it was a case of people occasionally getting married and going to the Philippines and finding a wife and coming back here or whatever, then we would still have a monoculture, and we would and the integration of race and the mixing of genes and stuff would be more in line with what had been historically, is that occasionally somebody comes in, adds to the gene pool, helps make people's immune systems a bit more complex and complete, and that kind of race mixing is necessary. It helps keep the human race healthy, is to have occasional people coming in from outside and marrying in and that kind of stuff, and then those genes get integrated. But what is not okay is to deliberately try and sabotage a race, to deliberately do things to try and force people to live together. That's the problem.
Like the left is doing with the Amazonians. Sarah Hanson Young has seen more ceilings than Michelangelo. That's good. I like that. That's good. I think we're ready to go. We're just getting we're just sort of, there's one more here. Is Turner the painter underrated simply because he isn't French? I don't even know who that is, but.
Yeah, I'm not much into paintings and art, unfortunately. I should know more than I do, because I do appreciate. Yeah.
Well, look, I'm really glad you came on, because my guest that I've been trying to get on for the last couple of weeks keeps bailing on me, and so I appreciate that you were able to come on so quickly, and
Don't you know I'll be a substitute whenever you want me. Ooh, ooh.
Great. I didn't even know you'd been on Tim Wilms's channel, so that's cool too, that there's that little connection there. Tim Wilms is a good guy, and I'm glad that you probably got the more serious chat that everyone wanted over there, because you and I are silly hearts. But it's fine.
It's the middle of the week. I have to go back to work tomorrow. You have to sort of keep yourself sane by being stupid. So I think Tim interviewed me at the weekend when I was ready to be serious again.
Sorry?
I think Tim interviewed me at the weekend when I didn't have to think about going to work the next day. So I was more prepared to be manly and serious, and
I've always had this hump day. Ever since I started to do a live show, I was like, Wednesday.
Because you're a slut.
Yes. Well, Wednesday just made sense to me, and so I've always had this time. But the time slot has gradually moved, and now it's 8:30. It used to be 7:15, and it's just moved because I'm so nice, and I
keep saying to my wife, how can Wednesday be hump day when we never do?
Well, you got to start. Maybe you should give her a little tickle. Oh, this is so unchristian.
Yeah. See what happens when you talk to a former leftist for too long? We corrupt. Nothing but corrupt and destroy.
Oh, that's funny. Your wife's going to be so annoyed at me for disrespecting her.
No, it's not your fault. It's my fault. That's what marriage is about.
I just went along with it.
It's my fault.
All right. Well, guys, tune in to I don't know what's on tomorrow. Thursday, The Uncuckables is on tomorrow, which is Tim Wilms and I think James Fox Higgins, XYZ Media. I don't know who will be there, but watch The Uncuckables tomorrow. And yeah, I would love to have you back, Stephen. You're fun.
Yeah, I'll try and think of something serious to talk about in a stupid way.
Yeah, let's try racism. No, okay.
Racism, yeah.
It's a great subject.
Can I come on with blackface?
Yeah. All right, bye guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I don't know who my guest will be next week. It'll either be Kaj, who will finally talk about freaking Sweden, or I'll bring on someone else. I'm not sure. All right, bye guys. Thank you. I'm going to end the broadcast. Yeah, buy his book in the description box below. All right, I'm going to end the broadcast.